I lost 80 pounds doing intermittent fasting, and in this video, I'm going to tell you why I quit. Hello friends, I'm the Life Professor, and on this channel, we teach people how to live more fulfilling lives. And over the past couple years, I have completely changed my health by going on a weight loss journey. And one of the biggest tools that I used during this journey was intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is the practice of artificially constricting the hours in which you eat. I specifically was eating between the hours of 11 and 5, so I had around 6-ish hours that I was actually consuming food, and I ate nothing else during the rest of the day. So the reason why I began intermittent fasting was I had actually started my weight loss journey, and I had actually reached a weight loss plateau where I wasn't losing any weight, and I was looking around for ways to fix this, and this idea of intermittent fasting kept coming up. This piqued my interest, and so I began researching the concept, and it really started to seem like a good idea. You know, you're not having to eat like this entire meal, so you just don't have to worry about an entire meal's worth of calories, which is pretty nice to have when you're on a calorie deficit. However, this brings up the first issue I'm going to bring up with intermittent fasting, which was that while yes, I didn't have to worry about this breakfast meal that didn't exist anymore, I noticed that my lunch just kept creeping up in calories. As it currently stands eating 3 meals a day, whenever I'm on a cut, my lunch is somewhere around 700 to 800 calories. However, whenever I was doing intermittent fasting, there was no way that that thing was going to be anything less than like 11 or 1200. And it's the same problem that many dietitians bring up all the time whenever they talk about this. Intermittent fasting can promote binge eating behavior. And to further extrapolate on this was not behavior that was exclusive to me just like religiously following the 11 to 5 eating plan. During the week, I would religiously stick to my calorie deficit. However, the moment that the weekend struck, I was going gorilla mode, eating like anything that I could possibly get a hold of, just sucking a bucket of grease up through a straw. But it didn't matter because I had followed the intermittent fasting guidelines during the week. So this is okay. And because this behavior was simply so self-destructive, I started to relook into the science around intermittent fasting. And being on an intermittent fasting plan does not necessarily mean that you are eating less calories, even though that you were eating less hours of the day. It can help, but it can also lead to just further problem behavior, which makes the entire situation worse. Also, something that you should keep in mind is that intermittent fasting is not necessarily optimal for muscle retention or growth. Our muscles like to have access to protein and other macronutrients throughout the day, and that's simply not something that intermittent fasting supplies. I will link a video down below that will go over some of the scientific information that helped change my mind, but you should really keep that in consideration. Another thing that constantly got brought up that made me originally start intermittent fasting was the alleged longevity benefits that are supplied by this eating pattern. And it seems that there is possibly some kind of longevity benefit that is added from intermittent fasting. However, it also seems that if there is, it's a very minor one, and that this is only on top of the other compounding health benefits that are much more important, like having a low BMI or low fat. And while intermittent fasting may add something on top of this, all other factors remaining the same, it can also just as likely lead to these other maladaptive patterns which are going to cause problems. Now, I also want to be just completely honest on this. This is not a hard and fast damnation of intermittent fasting. If this process works for you, I can't say anything against that. But I can also genuinely say these are my honest thoughts on like before and after starting and stopping intermittent fasting. So I remember after this period of losing most of this weight during my weight loss journey, I was looking at the date and I was like, let's just have a bowl of oatmeal at 9 o'clock. And so as the weeks went on, I continued to have breakfast and the sun continued to not fall from the sky. And I actually found that my life was much more flexible because I was not shackled to this restrictive eating pattern. When you're on this kind of hardline eating restriction, it can make the process of, being a human debilitating. Whenever I was intermittent fasting, I would have to legitimately worry about when that lunch meal was going to come, because if it got moved around to like 12 or 1, it was going to be a Katrina level disaster in my personal life. And this is the biggest problem that I had with intermittent fasting. The inherent lack of flexibility that's provided by intermittent fasting is itself a problem, because anytime that you have something that is so rigid and inflexible, it's going to lead to these problems. And that is my main problem that I have with intermittent fasting, is that because it is so inflexible and rigid, it is harmful to, actually living a real life. And I can personally say that it is not necessary to lose weight, because I stopped doing it I continue to lose weight, and I've kept that weight off without doing this intermittent fasting for years now. I mean, it just comes down to calorie counting, guys, I swear. And I know that that can be a problem, but if you have any issues with that, I actually made a video about that exact subject right here.